Hi viewers, welcome to Deep Dive America. Picture this. A locked safe inside the Pentagon holds 7,000 pages of explosive secrets. A report so damning it proves 4 U.S. presidents systematically lied about Vietnam. Body counts manipulated, secret bombings covered up, peace deals sabotaged, all to hide the truth about an unwinnable war. This is the Pentagon Papers. In 1971, a military analyst, Daniel Ellsberg, made the most dangerous decision of his life. He smuggled out these classified documents and gave them to the press. What happened next would trigger Nixon's infamous paranoia, force the Supreme Court to make a landmark free press decision, and reveal how far the government would go to silence truth-tellers. Today, we're exposing exactly what these papers contained, why they nearly toppled the Nixon administration years before Watergate, and how one man's conscience ignited the most consequential leak in American history. This story will change how you see government power forever. The Pentagon Papers were explosive because they exposed a decades-long trail of government lies about the Vietnam War, stretching back to 1945. As World War II ended, the U.S. saw Vietnam not as a struggle for independence, but as a Cold War battleground. Secret memos show President Truman quietly approved covert aid to French colonial forces fighting Ho Chi Minh, setting a precedent for intervention. Eisenhower then amplified fears of communism with his domino theory speeches while his administration sabotaged Vietnam's promised 1956 elections. Knowing Ho Chi Minh would win, Kennedy ramped up military advisors, yet in private, he admitted South Vietnam's government was rotten to the core. But the real turning point came under Lyndon Johnson. Recently declassified tapes capture LBJ confessing to a senator, "We're committing war crimes out there, but if I pull out, they'll call me a coward." This was the powder keg Daniel Ellsberg ignited, the damning proof that 4 presidents had knowingly sent young men to die in an unwinnable war, all to avoid political humiliation. By 1967, Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, once a key architect of escalation, quietly commissioned a top-secret study, later known as the Pentagon Papers, to document the failures and deceptions. Yet even he never imagined the full truth would surface. The report laid bare the staggering gap between what leaders knew and what they told the public. Fabricated battles, suppressed casualty figures, and deliberate misrepresentations of progress. When Ellsberg leaked the papers in 1971, it wasn't just about exposing secrets, it was about revealing a systemic betrayal. The government had sacrificed tens of thousands of lives to save face, and for the first time, Americans saw the unvarnished reality. The papers didn't just undermine trust in the war, they shattered faith in the presidency itself, proving that those in power had lied, repeatedly and knowingly, to keep the nation trapped in a bloody, feudal conflict. Daniel Ellsberg's transformation from a loyal government insider to one of America's most consequential whistleblowers reveals the human cost of confronting institutional deceit. A Harvard-educated Marine with first-hand experience in Vietnam, he initially shared the Cold War convictions driving U.S. policy. But his high-level security clearance at the Rand Corporation gave him access to classified reports exposing a chilling reality. Official accounts systematically lied about enemy strength and civilian casualties. The breaking point came in 1969 when he read a secret cable detailing Operation Speedy Express, a U.S. military campaign that slaughtered over 5,000 Vietnamese civilians while being falsely touted as a tactical victory. In that moment, alone with the documents in a secure vault, Ellsberg realized he wasn't just holding classified papers. He was holding evidence of war crimes. For months, he risked everything, secretly photocopying 7,000 pages late at night, his hands trembling with the knowledge that the Espionage Act could imprison him for life. Even his wife, noticing his erratic behavior, remained unaware he was secretly briefing anti-war senators. The 1970 invasion of Cambodia and the subsequent explosion of student protests finally pushed Ellsberg to act. He bypassed official channels entirely, delivering the documents to New York Times reporter Neil Sheehan with a revolutionary demand: "Make sure the whole world sees this." This wasn't just a leak, it was an act of defiance against a machine of lies that had consumed countless lives. Ellsberg's journey from believer to dissenter mirrored America's own reckoning with the war, proving that sometimes the greatest patriotism is holding power to account, no matter the personal cost. His actions forced the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about its leaders' willingness to deceive, sacrifice lives, and prolong a war they knew was unwinnable, all to avoid political embarrassment on the world stage. The Pentagon Papers became more than just documents. They were a turning point in public trust, exposing how far those in power would go to protect their own interests over truth and justice. The publication of the Pentagon Papers on June 13, 1971, triggered a historic clash between press freedom and government secrecy when the New York Times revealed decades of Vietnam War deception. Nixon's administration panicked, with Attorney General John Mitchell demanding censorship under dubious national security claims, marking the first time the U.S. government successfully silenced a major newspaper through prior restraint. But whistleblower Daniel Ellsberg had already distributed copies to 19 outlets, ensuring the truth would survive government suppression. As the Washington Post joined the reporting, Nixon's fury erupted on tapes. "We've got to get that son of a bitch," exposing his obsession with retaliation over accountability. The Supreme Court's rushed 6-3 ruling allowed publication, but avoided settling key constitutional questions, creating a hollow victory that left future whistleblowers vulnerable. Private judicial memos revealed the court's initial 4-4 deadlock, showing how narrowly America avoided authoritarian censorship. This landmark case exposed the government's willingness to violate democratic principles to hide uncomfortable truths, while demonstrating the press's crucial role as democracy's watchdog. The administration's subsequent illegal attacks on Ellsberg, including the burglary that sparked Watergate, proved the papers weren't just about Vietnam, but about preserving power at all costs. Though the press won this battle, the unresolved tension between transparency and state secrecy continues shaping national security debates today, with each new leak reigniting the same fundamental question: who gets to control the truth in a democracy? The Pentagon Papers crisis ultimately revealed more about America's fragile institutions than the war itself, showing both the strength of First Amendment protections and the alarming lengths governments will go to circumvent them. The Pentagon Papers didn't merely reveal government deception about Vietnam. They shattered the foundational trust between American citizens and their leaders, with polls showing public confidence in government collapsing from 60% to 30% in mere months. Nixon's frantic response, creating the illegal White House Plumbers Unit, exposed the administration's desperation as they burglarized Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office in a failed attempt to discredit him, using the same tactics that would later spiral into the Watergate scandal. Ellsberg's federal trial became its own indictment of government overreach, when the judge threw out all charges due to shocking prosecutorial misconduct, including illegal surveillance and evidence tampering. Historians recognize this moment as the beginning of the end for the unchecked imperial presidency, as Congress, finally awakened to executive branch abuses, passed the War Powers Act to restrain future presidents from dragging America into undeclared conflicts. Yet the paper's true significance lies in their enduring relevance. When Edward Snowden invoked Ellsberg's name while exposing NSA surveillance, he proved these documents had transcended their historical moment to become a permanent challenge to government secrecy. The Pentagon Papers established a dangerous truth, that when leaders lie consistently about matters of life and death, they don't just lose wars, they lose their people's faith. Modern whistleblowers still walk the path Ellsberg forged, proving some secrets are too destructive to keep, no matter the personal cost. The document's most profound legacy isn't in the laws they changed or the presidents they humiliated, but in the uncomfortable question they forced every citizen to confront. How much deception can a democracy withstand before it ceases to be a democracy at all? This crisis of trust they ignited still burns today, as each new generation discovers the same painful lesson Ellsberg revealed: that power corrupts most when it operates in darkness, and that sometimes the most patriotic act is to drag those secrets screaming into the light. The ripples from this scandal continue to spread through every modern debate about government transparency. From drone strike disclosures to pandemic response failures, proving truth remains the first casualty in every conflict, both foreign and domestic. What began as a classified history of Vietnam became America's mirror, reflecting our ongoing struggle to reconcile national security with democratic accountability. The real Pentagon Papers effect wasn't just exposing past lies, but creating a nation of skeptics who now instinctively question official narratives. A cultural shift that forever changed the relationship between governed and governors. In this age of rampant disinformation, Ellsberg's act stands as both warning and inspiration. That the price of liberty remains eternal vigilance, and that sometimes one person's conscience must become a nation's reckoning. Daniel Ellsberg's legacy forces us to confront a fundamental question. Is true patriotism blind obedience or courageous truth-telling? Those 7,000 explosive pages didn't just reveal Vietnam lies, they proved that democratic governments weaponize secrecy to manipulate their citizens. The real treason isn't exposing crimes, but committing them behind classified walls. Today's escalating crackdowns on whistleblowers and ballooning classification systems suggest we've learned nothing from this history. The Pentagon Papers challenge us to choose. Do we want a government that fears its people knowing the truth, or people brave enough to demand it? Every generation faces this test. Will we tolerate leaders who treat transparency as optional and accountability as inconvenient? Ellsberg's choice to risk everything for truth set the standard for civic courage in an age of institutional deceit. His story remains urgent as governments now classify more documents than ever, while prosecuting truth-tellers more aggressively. The uncomfortable reality is this: a nation that punishes its whistleblowers while protecting its liars has already lost its democratic soul. Share this history because the next Ellsberg is out there, and they'll need our support when they tear down the next wall of official lies.